every variant of socialism that has been tried throughout history completely impoverishes people. And the sliver of capitalism that we've been able to enjoy has led to the greatest amount of prosperity and progress in human history.
My dream would be a worker cooperative economy, one in which private ownership of any company is illegal, at least past a certain size. If you have one or two people doing a startup, it seems a little unwieldy to have a government mandated democratic threshold that you have to meet. That seems like it'd be very difficult to legislate. But past a certain size, I think it's reasonable to aim for the goal of a completely cooperative economy.
Well, he calls it a cooperative economy. What it really is a compulsory economy. It says that I can't have an idea, find people to fund it or fund it myself, and then go hire a bunch of workers who voluntarily choose to work with me to execute my vision. That's complete compulsion, is taking away people's freedom. And the whole basis for it is the idea that the only people who really have value to add are the so-called workers. The people who really add value are not the people who establish the vision of the company, who organize all of the productive activities, who figure out how to actually generate sales and get customers. No, the people who add value are kind of like the line workers who, if you take, if you go back 50 years ago, like the car workers on the assembly plant. But that's just not true. Every person who contributes to a productive process adds value. And what the people at the top in a successful company ad is the highest value because it's the highest leverage value. It's the basic ideas that determine whether or not the enterprise is value creating in the first place. And without those people, there are no jobs to be had, and there are no products and services that are actually valuable to be created.
I would say from Vaush's perspective is that the reason why we need a democratic system in which the workers owns the mean of production is essentially that the whole dynamic of the capitalist and the worker is exploitative. The fact that profit even exists and the workers are the ones that's creating it and stuff like that, doing the thing while the capitalist is sitting there scratching his beard hair and thinking and organizing things. I don't see how it's reasonable that private property is justified in this sense.
If you actually think about what profit is and how it's created. So if I have strawberries, I bought them. I bought strawberries for $500 and then I sell them and earn $1,000. That $500 is my profit. Well, what does a worker do? A worker comes out not of profits. The payment for workers is paid out of my capital. It's paid out of my pocket before I make that sale. So I have $500 worth of strawberries. And let's say I have another $200 in cash that I've saved up over the years. And I say, hey, Larry, come sell my strawberries for me. I'll pay you $200. And then you are going to give me whatever revenues come from selling the strawberries. That's still all my profit. You got paid out of my capital. I didn't expropriate that profit from you. I hired you as a helper. I created an opportunity that you didn't otherwise have. So the idea that the profit is actually generated by workers is just simply and utterly wrong.
I think from another pushback would be, and they'd see it as a little conceit on your part when you said their problem is the leverage power that you mentioned, that kind of value scale leverage power. They don't believe anyone should have leverage power because that inherently is exploitative.
Well, so there's a basic blending that goes on anytime you talk about from the perspective of anti-capitalists, and that is the equation of economic power and political power. So they treat it as, oh, that leverage that a business has where it can offer money to workers, that's the same as a torturer has when he can say, I'm not going to let you out of here unless you confess to a crime that you didn't commit. But all that leverage really means is that the people who own a company have the power to offer you an opportunity that you can take or leave. That's the only power they have, is to offer you things, and you can take them or leave them, and you can go to their competitors across the street. But the leverage I was talking about was the leverage of an idea. So if you think about value, the value created by brute physical labor, it's very, very minimal. And indeed, if you take away all of the ideas that human beings contribute to a productive process and just look at the value of physical labor, it's hardly enough to sustain one single human being's life at the lowest kind of ability, a bare minimum of survival, right? Like maybe you can like pick a few berries, or if you dig into the ground, maybe you can plant like a few crops to keep yourself from starving to death. But all leverage in terms of the ability to create more value than just our raw physical ability comes from the mind. And what the people who create a company do is they have the fundamental ideas that are going to determine is there value being created here. You only get the benefit of the ideas if people are free to implement them in the pursuit of profit. And that's exactly what they're opposing. And that's why everywhere that socialism is tried, yeah, I know, not this particular variant that he's kind of dreamed up and concocted in his mind, but every variant of socialism that has been tried throughout history completely impoverishes people. And the sliver of capitalism that we've been able to enjoy, the sliver of economic freedom that has existed in little pockets around the globe at little times, has all undercut by all kinds of government intervention, has led to the greatest amount of prosperity and progress in human history. So the idea that exploitation is a product of capitalism, when indeed it is socialism and totalitarianism and every variant of statism that is actually exploitive to people, is a complete reversal of the truth. And I mean, really, a person should be ashamed for saying it.
You find worker co-ops are not effective? Because I know he cites some statistics about the effectiveness of worker co-ops. Are you against worker co-ops in any way?
Well, that's the thing. In a free society, you can have all the worker co-ops you want. Go ahead, start one. But what you can't do is you can't force people to join them, and you can't prevent people from arranging their economic affairs another way. So like, I'm not here dictating that we need to make his favored form of organizing businesses illegal, but he's saying that he's going to make everything else illegal. Who's going to suffer the consequences if he's wrong? Like, there's no concern of that. It's no, I'm going to centrally plan people's lives. I'm going to dictate their hopes and dreams. And if I'm wrong, well, I guess too bad. You all are going to sink into poverty. I mean, that is so outrageous and callous and really irresponsible. Like, people have this idea that you can just throw out ideas, and that's somehow like, you're not, the only thing that you're culpable for is, do you have good intentions? But no, you can't claim good intentions when you're playing with something as dangerous and as life and death vital as ideas.
Couldn't you say the same thing against capitalism, that, you know, if we have a capitalist economy, that, you know, it's going to lead to this point of called post-scarcity, which we're going to run out of materials and stuff like that, and we're going to drive climate change to such a high rate that nobody's going to be able to do anything. We have no materials, and we burnt all the Earth's resources.
We haven't run out of any resource. We keep running into new resources, that even these so-called non-renewable resources like oil or different minerals in the earth and so on, the known stores of them that we have, that we can profitably access, keeps growing over time. And that's precisely because what creates value is the human mind. The human mind can discover new and better ways to do things. But their whole model of how human beings actually operate is that we're complete parasites who, what we do is just consume this store, this bounty that automatically exists. And that's the same way he thinks of businesses. He doesn't think of businesses as things created by the human mind, and that therefore we need the freedom to protect human beings' ability to create those kinds of businesses and to think and to create wealth as they judge best. It's the businesses are here, and I'm just going to take control of them. Why? Well, there's no answer to that. Why should he have the right to dictate how human beings interact and what happens to somebody else's property? But the fact is, all of these things, including resources, are created by the human mind. There's no such concern as like, oh, we're going to run through them. It's no, we're going to make them valuable, and we'll find new and better ways to do things over time if we're left free.
The reality of this is that I really don't give a shit whether or not worker cooperatives are more effective or efficient than traditionally run firms. In fact, they could be less effective than traditionally run firms, and I would still advocate for them for political reasons, if not economic reasons. For the same reason that even if you presented me data proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that an authoritarian government is more effective at quick decision-making than a democratic government, I would still favor democracy in any situation, because I think the ability to control the systems in which you live is just a fundamental right humans should have access to.
Look, what's more authoritarian than mass expropriation of other people's property? I mean, like, seriously, how's he going to implement that? By massive use of force against innocent people who've done nothing else except for create the businesses that provide us with the standard of living that we enjoy. So No, I don't think that there's anything special about democratic. All that means is that they're voting to expropriate rather than a small number of people openly expropriating. But no, there's nothing noble or respectable about saying that some people get to take things that other people created.
The assumption is that once we get to the point where that's the accepted idea, people would kind of go along with that part. So we don't have to take people's stuff. Most of those people who exist now would just agree to be in their system, in which then, like you said before, all other ways of doing business would be essentially banned from here on out. So it'd kind of be like a kind of restart type of thing. So I guess they would try and argue we're not going to take anybody's stuff.
Well, but that's exactly what they're going to do. Unless the person who runs the business says, yeah, I want to give it all to my workers. But like, look, I mean, here, let's take a vote right now. Should we take all of Larry's money? Yes, let's do it. We'll divide it amongst all three of us. Like, okay, is that just now because we voted? No, of course not. We just voted to totally violate his rights.
I mean, you wouldn't get much money, but
again, I guess trying to give their best case. What if they said, hey, Larry chose to be a real good brother's keeper. He wants to live in this community, and he agreed to it. And then Larry could either build a co-op or he can't build anything else, and he agreed to those rules. So what's wrong with that? We're all about consent. We're all about agreements. We're all about bodily autonomy here. We're just saying once you agree to be a family team player, you agree to be a team player. And
yeah, well, I mean, look, that's the ancient model of tribalism, which is the group owns you. You provide loyalty to the group, and the group will take care of you unless it needs to dispose of you for its own sake. But that is basically a predatory and like suffocating form of human existence. And the great achievement of human beings over the last few hundred years is that we've risen to a level where we can have a society where we can live together and benefit from living together, but we can treat each individual as an end in himself who has the right to govern his or her own life. That is, we have what we agree to as being part of society is that we agree to respect each other's rights and to deal with one another as independent equals, not as, hey, I'll cut your throat today, but don't worry, you get to cut my throat tomorrow. There's nothing noble about that. We've already seen that the complete prospering of human flourishing that takes place when people are left free. To say that, no, what we really want to go back to is kind of the primitive tribalism that treats you as just a disposable cell in the group. It's barbaric.
Considering your abstract philosophical principles of individual rights, it's contradictory to history, right? I mean, man has thrived always in a collective. I mean, if you think about it, the reason why we have schools is because it's a collective that built it. The reason why the government functions, it's one person, it's a collective of people making decisions. The reasons why we have grocery stores and things like that and food chains, it's a bunch of collective people coming together, putting their minds together, collective reasoning, and developing all these goods for man.
Well, but that's switching the meaning of the term, right? Cooperation and collective are two different things. A collective is precisely the idea that it's not you as an independent equal deciding how you're going to interact with other people and doing it by voluntary consent to mutual benefit. It's that you are a member of the group who gets used and who gets to use. The way I like to think about it is basically what collectivism does is it compels people and turns them into burdens and resources. So sometimes you're a resource that the group gets to exploit whenever you're doing anything that's like actually effective or actually like wealth creating, or if you bring any value to the table, cool, you're a resource that we can exploit. The people who didn't contribute anything, well, they get to kind of take the benefits that you've made possible. And if you've achieved nothing, if you're suffering, if you failed, if you faltered, if you have no values, well, then you're a burden that we're going to take on. And what it in the end means is it means sacrificing the people who achieve something and who put in the effort and work to make something of their lives. It means sacrificing them to those who don't. And that is a complete injustice. What they want to do is make sacrifice the rule at the point of a gun. And that was what I think is primitive and barbaric and deeply, deeply unjust.
Why do you think sacrifice is unjust? In this sense, it would be
Y-
necessary.
You work, I eat. It's the definition of unjust. It means you achieve something and therefore you don't have a right to it. Why do I have a right to what you've achieved? Because I didn't achieve it. Like, that is unjustifiable, and yet that's exactly what the supposed virtue of sacrifice means. It's, if you want to put it in the deepest philosophic terms, it's basically fighting the law of causality. It says you brought effects into existence and I get to enjoy the benefits of that. But if you want to put it in more simplistic terms, it's you go work your ass off while I sit here and reap all the rewards.
If you enjoyed this episode of Method and Madness, go ahead and make sure to click the bell icon down below so you don't miss an episode every single Monday. Additionally, if you like the content that Ayn Rand Center UK provides, then you should consider becoming a member by clicking the link in the description down below.